So let's begin our time, holding our own personal pattern between our two hands, coming to the present moment. I like this little ritual because when we do this, I can then feel, and I hope you can too, the quality of presence of the collective that's gathered here today. So I'll be quiet and we'll just work with our personal patterns. Like I said, come to the present moment and just to be open and aware of what we will be considering today. So. I watch, I wait, and am still, abiding the cycle that moves as it will. The beauties, the struggles that most do not see, the hidden and secret, are open to me. The new and the full and the dark of the moon, the shapes in the shadows, the brightness of noon, all have their place in the turning of time. Both coming and going have reason and rhyme. The herbs of the field and the symbols of land bring healing and bless as they come through my hand. I welcome the fruits. I welcome new birth as old wounds are healed in the joy of the earth. Say wow. This particular piece is entitled The Healer and was written by Nancy Rose Meeker. For some of you, she is Yolanda's daughter. So we're going to continue our exploration of the endocrine system as you received in your email announcement. As you know, Chris and I started doing something on this in our last Zoom Sunday. And as the days moved on, it became obvious to us that there was so much more relative to the endocrine system that we have not had a chance or the time or the opportunity to delve into, I might say, deeper detail, newer current day awarenesses of the endocrine system. And I'm a big fan of this system. I have been over the years. Some of you who have taken our classes know that in the advanced class, we had a lot of fun with the 7 glands. We even did an African dance to the New Earth. I hope some of you remember that. I still remember, I still have the music. And once in a while, pull it out and do my dance. Anyway, for this call, for this time, Joseph Antel, my cute little brother, is going to be working with Chris and I, but Chris and Joseph principally today, to continue not starting over, but starting with the spirit, the gonads and the spirit of the new earth, followed by the adrenals and the spirit of the single eye. I happen to be a very fortunate woman who has sat in our dining den listening to these two men in one of Joseph's recent visits to our home, and listening to the two men talk about the endocrine system. and some of the new awarenesses they've been experiencing. And I'm really glad they're willing to do this for all of us. So today, as I mentioned, are the first two. And then the next Zoom in December will be the next two, the islets of Langerhans and the thymus. And then in the new year, we'll do the final upper three. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joseph, and I'll just enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Donna. So wonderful to be with you all today, and I just wanted to look at the gallery here instead of looking at myself and to share some time with you related to the endocrine system. As you know, I am a teacher for standard process and MediHerb, and have taught not only attunement, but have taught nutrition and related to the physical body. And I'm going to get into some of that today. Some of you online are clinicians, so this, I trust, will be very helpful to you. Others of you are very interested in this for your own sake and your family's sake and anybody that you work with. And so when we look at the endocrine system, as I say to my practitioners, by the way, I teach almost every week, and all of you are welcome to be on. So you just have to send me an email if you want to be on my teachings, which is more about the vitamin supplements and herbs, but there is an esoteric piece to that. But as I've said many times on my lectures, there is nothing that occurs in the human body that does not tie back into the control of the endocrine system. And there's nothing that occurs in the world that does not come back to the control of these seven spirits as you have learned them. Gandhi had some beautiful words that I just put in a recent blog that I wrote. We but mirror the world. All the tendencies in the outer world are to be found in the world of our bodies. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man, a woman changes his or her own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him or her. This is the divine mystery supreme. This is no longer a mystery because of the understanding we've been sharing as a group, as I say, this tribe of healers, and many more that share their interest in healing others and helping others. And so this is of uppermost importance, and you'll see that it relates to what is not only going on, as I said, in us individually, but us collectively. The spirit of the new earth. And remember, as we consider these seven portals, or these seven planes of being, we can see that in the first plane, which we're going to look at today, the new earth, that is the fulfillment of all the other six, manifests there. So there is a broader expansion of a release of energy, we say, all the essences of love into the world when we consider the gonads, when we consider the new earth. And of course, as is in one of Chris's books, the chart that I made, the life step to this relates to intimacy. It relates to nurturing. And so you can say that the work that is done through the spirit of the new earth is the broadest work of release of love into the world that there is. And as we move up in this series that we're doing, that release gets finer and finer. We need the broad release. It's a big world. It's a big solar system. It's a big universe. So that broad release isn't just one little focused pinpoint. It is a radiance. In the Bible, it says, and the glory of the Lord of life shone round about. That is the spirit of the new earth. And so, but a little bit more about this. These endocrine glands all release, from a physical standpoint, hormones. These hormones communicate. They are the communication system of the entire body. They're not affected by anything else. They are a ductless glands, so that from a physical standpoint, they're only influenced by each other primarily. It's very interesting. They are a tribe unto themselves, but they influence, as I say, everything else. But in order to, and the word hormone, by the way, means I arose and set in motion. So anytime that you're working, say, in the gonads of someone, you are awakening and setting in motion that energy of the new earth, as we describe it, that energy of intimacy, that energy of nurturing, of knowing that true comfort for that person. A lot of the work that we do is in consciousness, isn't it? We don't say to people when we share an attunement, or we can't from a distance, I love you, I bless you. Maybe you do say that. But in our consciousness, that is where the consciousness of the healer, that this takes place first. But this interconnectedness is the communion throughout the body. It's not just the communication, it's the interrelationship with everything. Now, the gonads themselves, from a physical standpoint, all need frequencies to help them to sustain and heal. And remember, the gonads, this spirit of the new earth, has 3 particular cycles throughout a lifetime. And those cycles are from the day you were conceived to the day you are 30 years old. And that relates to bringing new life, new generations into the world. Now, whether you have physical children or not, we all participate in that. From 30 to 60, we're sustaining that creativity. We're bringing what is accurate now into the world. Not our parents' generation, not our grandparents' generation, but what is accurate now. These cycles of influence in the world must go forward. Part of the stuckness of this world is because the spirit of the new earth has not fully manifested. It has not gone forth. Roger de Winton used to say, this is where what we're doing in the attunement current moves all the way through. And of course, the last cycle of 30 relates to many of us right now that are 60 or over, of passing on this wisdom, the beauty and simplicity of our own lives, and moving forward with what we have found to be true, be it ever so humble, be it ever so great, what we have found to be true, this is our personal ministry and our collective ministry. This time from 60 to 90, is the old saying, we should not die with our song still in us. That's why we're all singing in the choir this morning, because our song needs to be sung. And it doesn't matter if it's good enough for anyone else to sing, as one of the songwriters said, sing your song. When we get to the point of nourishing this at the physical level, there has to be, for every organ, gland, and tissue in the body, there is a vitamin, there is a mineral, and there is a like protein. And for the gonads, the vitamin, and I'm just going to touch on these, the vitamin for that is wheat germ oil. It's vitamin E. So be careful not to get synthetics, because you won't get the results that you want. But wheat germ oil in the 60s and 70s was known as the fertility vitamin. There are scientific studies that show if a person takes wheat germ oil, athletes especially, they can increase their performance up to 250%. This is a powerful frequency, all through this one earth substance. And of course, the mineral, because remember, you have to have the building blocks, and then you have to have the mortar to hold all of this together. Well, the building blocks are the minerals. And the mineral for zinc, which is also, you could say, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end, it's also the same mineral for the pineal. Very interesting, isn't it? Now, zinc is a vast mineral, and a handful of pumpkin seeds unheated would give you enough zinc on a daily basis if you don't want to take a supplement. But zinc has over 300 different functions. It's a very expansive, like the new earth, mineral for both the alpha and the omega, as we have described it. And then, of course, the indigenous cultures throughout the world and throughout history have always eaten the whole animal, all of the glands. So an ovary substance for women and a testicle substance for men. And Standard Process, who I mainly work for, has a product called Simplex F for female and Simplex M for male. Pituitary, thyroid, adrenal, and gonadal. So these are products that I feel are important in our discussion today. Now, of course, if there becomes an imbalance in this area, and one of the great imbalances is cancer. Anytime you're working with a cancer pattern, you're working in a pattern of the new earth where these hormones are not in balance. They are too excessive. Estrogen for women, and remember, breast cancer is the #1 cancer for women now, not lung cancer anymore. And for men, prostate cancer. And so they reflect in the other organs, but the source of this imbalance comes from and is guided by or not guided by the invisible components of the endocrine system. And so this is just brief. There's also, if you're interested in herbs, there's herbs for men, which is tribulus, which any of you that use Standard Process or MediHerb can get that, and that was out of stock, but by the way, it's back in stock. And wild yam complex for older women, over 50, and shatavari, which is in, forgot the name of the product. It'll come back to me. This herb, shatavari, means, I'll give you one example. The woman with 100 husbands. So that'll give you an idea how powerful these earth substances are. So remember that when you're working in the new earth, that we are especially working with the other endocrine glands. And I'm just going to give you just 3 quick examples. The ovaries and the testes have a direct relatedness to the pituitary. They balance each other related to your nervous system, whether you're sympathetic, you're too fast, or you're too slow. If the 2 of those are not established in agreement, then your nervous system is off. And so that's very important. And of course, the gonads also tie directly in with the adrenal glands, which we're going to consider in a minute. After the testes abate in a man and the ovaries abate, slow down in menopause and andropause, the responsibility for that hormonal balance falls upon the adrenals, up to 30% of that responsibility. So these are just some very simple things that we look at. But as I say, if they are not in balance, men have trouble with their prostate. It's not the fault of the prostate. It's the itself. It is an issue with the new earth. If a woman has trouble with breasts or uterus, same thing. And so as healers, Yolanda said in several instances that sharing attunements, whether with the person before you or in a distance, we have to know physiology. We have to know what blesses it. Yes, we can say words of blessing, but also other substances and bringing those frequencies in. And so just to close here in this segment, it is important to know that the spirit of the new earth is the place of fulfillment. Many people reach the end of their lives and don't feel fulfilled. So here is the work that we have to do in consciousness individually and collectively with this. This is the place where peace on earth manifests. If this new earth is not fulfilled in the way it's designed to fulfill, there can never be peace on earth. You can have all of the summits you want. There's a big summit in Glasgow, Norway, I believe. And they say the fate of the planet will be negotiated at this summit. The fate of the planet is in, to a large extent, our hands, human beings' hands, as they turn away from things that have corrupted the planet and turn toward those things that bless the planet. And so, Chris, are you going next, or am I doing the little attunement?
Let me go next.
Okay.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm going to make a few comments about the vibrational aspect of the gonads. I welcome the class members that are here from the advanced attunement class. We'll actually be spending some time looking at the endocrine glands using the Creator's Magic book. But I wanted this morning to touch upon more of the vibrational side of the gonads. First, I would say living at the crossover point, which is what we've been endeavoring to do through our attunements and awakening in consciousness. Then we have the thymus, the islets of Langerhans, the adrenals, and the gonads kind of as a megaphone. I'm sure all of you remember a megaphone. It starts small to fit around your mouth and then goes out to expand what's going forth. the vibration at the thymus gland is very tight and very much a beginning. And the vibration at the gonads is the outer edge of the megaphone, right? And it contains a lot. So as we move out, the complexity and the vibrational intricacies of substance expands. So the other point I want to make is that coming to the crossover point ourselves, individually, there will open up, if it's not beginning to happen already, there will begin to open up in you a fuller understanding of the world that we live in, because below the crossover point, we're basically living in 2 dimensions. So we're moving from 2 dimensions into, I don't know if any of you ever studied Euclid geometry in high school, 2 dimensions, straight lines, flat surfaces, all of that. And then you're exposed to 3-dimensional sacred geometry. And it's like, wow, another whole world. And this is somewhat like what is beginning to unfold for you and for me as we come to the crossover point. There is the understanding of what all of this is starting to fill in. So that, and one other thing I want to mention is that the ultimate reason for the human form is so that I, as a being of light and love, may have a full expression at the earth dimension. And through that, cultivate and nourish the creation called planet Earth through its process of ascension. So I'm a steward. If I'm not at the crossover point, then that is impossible. So we're at the edge of coming back to the crossover point individually and collectively, so that this megaphone for being is coming back into place. The replication of being in the human form brings with it free will. We are free at the physical level to express our vibration, our energy. There's no restriction, which is scary for a lot of us. The reason for that is, as a creator being, I'm a creator. I have the full range of creative possibilities at my hand. And that is so for us physically. So we're one of the very few places, I think, in the universe where there had been the movement forward to replicate the being that we are into a form that was able to operate on the surface of a planet and then assist in a stewardship way the planet's ascension to become a sun. Another thing to realize is that the gonads are at the bottom of the endocrine system. In the Bible and other sacred teachings, they talk about the river of life. In yoga, they talk about the Kundalini energy. It all starts in the gonadal level and moves. Now, if you think of the silver cord as extending down to the pineal, think of the silver cord also extending down to the gonads. When you incarnated as a being of light, you probably had the experience of seeing the possibility of where you're going to incarnate, and then you dove into a tunnel of substance, pneumoplasm, silver cord, till you hit bottom. Bottom was the physical level. Some of you maybe, as you have fuller awakenedness in consciousness, may remember that experience. So we carry an increasing sense of power as we awaken at the crossover point to what we're capable of in the physical sense. So where I'm going with this is that every thought, every feeling, and especially every act physically makes a great impact. And it's greater and greater and greater because you are a creator in human form now. So don't discount your power, your spiritual power and presence. It is growing in leaps and bounds as we become more conscious of self and participate in a co-creative way. Another thing about the gonadal level and the vibration there, besides being the place where the river of life and the silver cord are located, the gonads and the vibration of the gonads keep us locked into this time and space, this particular life pattern. All of us, all of our forms is a pattern of life. And the gonadal radiation keeps us tethered to this time and space. In years gone by, I'm driving to work and I'm passing the downtown airport in Kansas City, and there's the blimp, which was going to monitor Monday Night Football, and it's tethered by its nose to the ground. The gonadal radiation keeps us tethered to this level and dimension. If that starts to fade for various reasons, Joseph mentioned some of that, lacks in different ways, then the anchoring into this time and space start to get fuzzy. And I feel that that's part of what happens with people who start to lose it mentally, because they're not fully present here. They're no longer tethered to this time and space. Are there other time and spaces? Well, of course. As a creator being, you can make all kinds of life patterns, right? But this one is the one that I'm conscious of and I'm living in. So it needs to be anchored here. I also feel that relationships is really big with the radiation at this level. We're all exposed to radiation. I find it, we're all exposed to having relationships right from birth. The interesting thing about today with the advent of the internet and cell phones, a lot of people are not able to have the social interaction of relationships that we used to have. And I feel that there's a dimension of energy that's missing now in the human population, because everybody's doing their relationships via the cell phone or the internet, which is interesting to think, because the relationships that are created in our field and that we participate in are one way by which the energies of the planets of the solar system and the sun, it's called astrology, are able to be digested and brought into the earth. And the gonadal radiation helps a great deal with this. The surface of the planet, a little above and a little below. So a little bit of the electromagnetic field and a little bit under the surface, like the tectonic plates. And all of the life forms on the surface of the planet reflect the energy of humanity, reflects the substance, the pneumoplasm of humanity. Humanity over the last 70 years or so, since World War II, has been increasingly going into chaos with its behavior, with its generation of substance. You can't find any field of human endeavor today without chaos and opposing views. It's not just government, it's finances, it's religion, it's healthcare, it's even science and data. It gets differing views these days. And we have lived in a time when the surface of the planet has been relatively quiet, because it's has reflected that sense of union that's deeply in humanity. But with that disappearing, the earth reflects our energy, and the energy of chaos, which is building and coming up more and more. And I don't think I'm the only one that observes that. I see some changes on the surface of the earth coming. So besides circadian rhythm and skin and rhythms of bodily functions, all coming through the radiation of the gonads, a reflection on the part of the surface of the earth is also a part of that, because the radiation through the gonads helps determine the shape of the surface of the earth. For example, we have a lot of what science calls tectonic plates, and they rub over each other and cause earthquakes, basically. That's a simple way of looking at it. Should the tectonic plates be rubbing over each other? I don't think so. I think they were designed to just meet and float on the substance below. We don't have that. If we did that, the Earth would be bigger in size, by the way. Gonadal radiation is what sets this in motion. So one last comment I want to make about gonadal radiation, and that is, in this day and this time with you and our field of attunement together, I feel that we are opening up through the gonadal radiation the new lines of force, the new grid, if you will, for life to appear. This world, as many people are saying, and spiritual seers, and even the Hopi Indians, prophecy, and lots of others, is starting to move into a process of decay and self-destruction. Who will allow the new lines of force to be generated? Well, that's us. This new grid system for the expression of life and the new forms of life. How do I do that? I do that by handling the gonadal radiation in a wonderful, holy, and sacred way. So there's more to say, but our time's running short. So I just want to say on a closing note that our gonads are there for more than just climaxes and relationships. Well, maybe the way to say that's reproduction. There's more to that than just those two functions. There's a whole wide range of creator activity that comes through this radiation. And as Joseph and I have introduced some thinking to expand our awareness of this radiation, I ask that you hold it in a sense of sacredness in yourself, so that this new radiation can begin to emerge through this gland in each one of us and through us together. We make a field, which is a very powerful field together, that this radiation can flow through. So, Joseph, you're going to do a minute or two of attunement, and then we'll open it up for a little conversation.
Great, thank you. So if you'd all, as you are sitting comfortably, and get your arms and your hands relaxed on either side of you, whatever is appropriate. And you can close your eyes or not close your eyes. So in your left hand, as your hands and arms are very relaxed, and that relaxation moves throughout your body, I want you to visualize the connection with, as I mentioned, the pituitary and the gonads. So the mother, the pituitary, the spirit of the womb, the mother spirit connects with the new earth, physically, mentally, emotionally. So if you'd put that consciousness, allow that to be in your left hand. And as you do that, you might find that there's an actual texture, a very fine texture, almost like fine silk. You can feel that fineness. Let that just be for a minute. Now in your right hand, or your giving hand for most of us, I want you to what we've been considering today, let the radiance, the beauty, the nurturing, the intimacy of the new earth connect with that. And as that happens in that right hand, you're going to feel a very different vibration, a broadening, as Chris was describing and I was describing, that the fullness of release into the world and into your own bodies, of course, because nothing takes place in the world, as far as we are concerned as human beings, unless it happens in us first. So let that and then as we move into that, we can feel a connection of the two. There's a blending. Very interesting. That the fineness of truth, the womb, the mother, connects with the broadness, expansiveness of the new earth. They meet, they touch. This is intercourse. This is communion, interconnection. And as this takes place, you can also feel the change happening in your own body. And I, as I be lifted up, will draw all men, all women into the full reality of love. So though we would all love to sit in this, we need to continue with our discussions here. So you can gradually let go of that and feel that difference in your own body. And now in the world.
Great. Thank you, Joseph.
Hmm.
So we would like to open it up for some thoughts by you. We've got 10 minutes here or so. It's not a long time. And then see if we can move into consideration of the adrenals before we close our time. If you want to say something, unmute yourself and then mute yourself again when you're finished. So our field is open for your participation. If all of us may recall our youth, we were teenagers and in our 20s, it was usually highlighted by hormones, and especially the new earth hormone. And we may have ended up sleeping with the wrong things vibrationally. So you can see the wisdom of maybe a spiritual mentor showing up for a young person who can begin to help direct them in understanding their own body and their own presence so that they can come together in a more sacred and holy way. Because as I said, this area is there's more to it than just reproduction and having a climax, but that's tended to be where the world has gone. And so here we are opening up a greater consciousness of that. I appreciate what you said, Joyce. I want to move us into a consideration of the adrenals here for a few minutes. I'm going to go first on this one, and then Joseph will have something to say as well. The radiation through the adrenals provides us with a lot of creativeness and opportunities. This is where focus and intent and singleness comes from. And that means that the mind that we have with is not really independent. I know we tend to think that our minds are independent. I can think and do whatever I want. That's the way the human nature world is set. But the outer mind is really for the expression of truth and one's own radiance. And if you think of the sacred cross, which is an equal cross, more the Celtic style, the mind has been so involved in all the horizontal aspects when it's really, its purpose is the vertical, to be in place, to provide direction, focus, intent, as I said. A lot of people have thought that the mind is located in the brain. I would say that the brain is really just the physical part of the mind. The rest of the mind is in the body and in the energy envelope around our bodies. In some of what I work with in the class that we're underway, we get into the radiation through your left adrenal helps create the lines of force around which the animal kingdom forms appear. And it's also the lines of force around which weather appears. Do you ever wonder why weather is getting so out of balance and chaotic? Why the number of animal forms are disappearing? There's a real decrease in the number of animal forms in the world. It's not just the weather. A lot of it has to do with the radiation moving through humanity's adrenals, if I can say that in a collective way, which means my adrenals. Also, that left adrenal is a wonderful radiation that allows for the understanding, maybe the word would be intelligence, of the electrical portion of the electromagnetic field. So you'll discover that a lot of healers use applied kinesiology. There's some online here that do that to access and find out what's going on in the body. Well, the radiation that makes that possible is the radiation through the left adrenal. And so there's, as we know, intelligence in the physical world, but how to access it? Well, here's one way to do it. The world has come up with lots of other ways. I would say the numerology is another way that gives some insight to this radiation, and people have developed numerology down through the ages. That as opposed to astrology, which was more to do with relationships and the physical side of things. And we have the right adrenal, which to me creates the lines of force for thinking and speaking and gathering information and overall brain function. The adrenals work together, but they also work independently and carry their own vibrations, as I'm somewhat speaking about. The challenge is to disconnect the mind from the way it's been. It's lost in its own thought, so to speak. In the Creator's Magic book, which we're using for the class, I have this quote from Deepak Chopra. It is estimated that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. This is not surprising. I thought maybe sometimes I've had more than that. Maybe you've had that too. But what is disconcerting is that 95% of the thoughts you've had today are the ones you had yesterday. And each thought that you have triggers another thought, which is also a conditioned response. The point behind that I want to make behind this is that there's something new to come through the mind, but to do that, the radiation moving through the adrenals, which is the radiation of the single eye, must be present, must be held in attunement. And when that happens, then I think there's a book that Joe Dispenza wrote. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it has a lot to do with breaking the habits of thinking. that we're conditioned into doing. And as we're moving on, I want to say one more thing about thought. And I'm going to read this. This is a little part of a quote from D.H. Lawrence, who was a poet. Thought. I love thought, but not the jingling and twisting of already existent ideas. I despise that self-important gain. Thought is the upwelling of unknown life into consciousness. Thought is the testing of statements on the touchstone of the conscious. Thought is gazing onto the face of life and reading what can be read. Thought is pondering over experience and coming to a conclusion. Thought is not a trick or an exercise or a set of dodges. Thought is man in his wholeness, wholly attending. The expression of our beingness through the adrenals, both sides, brings a new dimension to the mind. And I encourage you to open yourselves to that experience in self-attunement, that who you are may come through, and there might be mental understanding of that. And we express that light in our living to the blessing of my body, but the field that I'm living in, which includes all of you. So those are some thoughts about the mind I wanted to share. Joseph?
Am I okay to take 10 minutes or?
Yes, if you take 10 minutes, then we'll have 10 minutes for conversation. So.
Okay. Well, it's a great conversation. And this area of the spirit of the single eye, hold on, I just want to get you all on there so I can see your wonderful faces. Human beings, as we spoke about with the gonads, the release of power, human beings have really struggled with power. Because of this area, they have struggled with focus, their inability to focus because they don't know where their focus should be. If an individual cannot find their focus, the spirit of the single eye, they can never be successful. They're always questioning themselves. They're always changing their minds. And this has come about because the leadership in the world has not had a focus in love. And so it has tried to control power, control this power by forcing things. This is why the cruelty and the abuse in the world manifests at the place of the new earth, but where it begins is in the spirit of the single eye, or not, double-mindedness. And you can feel my my force in this, because this needs to be spoken into the world through me. Because the antithesis of this is kindness. Somebody asked the Dalai Lama what his purpose on earth was, and expecting this magnificent, complicated, convoluted answer. And he said, I'm here to be kind. That's the spirit of the single eye. I'm here to have integrity. Someone asked Warren Buffett, he says, when you do business, do you look for someone that's, aggressive? They were giving him all of these examples. And then the whoever was interviewing finally said, well, just give me one word. Give me one word how you determine how things are going to go in success, in prosperity. And he said, integrity. I look for people with integrity. And without the spirit of the single eye, without that focus in love, because all of these are elements and essences of love, but this particular range of energy and quality, the world becomes worn out, exhausted. That's why what we're talking about is the adrenal glands. Stress, inflammation, all of this comes back to the spirit of the single eye. And many physical manifestations, as I said, with the gonads related to certain parts of the body, the adrenals relate, it's added to the renals. Well, the effect on the kidneys and the urinary tract system and is immense. And you know where this really comes out when you're working with somebody is people with kidney issues, people that have chronic kidney stones, chronic arthritis, all of these things, because unless one finds that single eye and is focused, one cannot move forward. One is looking back. They're literally physically turning to stone, or pillar of salt, as it described of Lot's wife in the Bible. And of course, as I said earlier, the issues get forced, don't they? Well, how is it forced in the world? Caffeine, coffee, is the most used drug on earth. Now, most people can't even get up and function in the morning without coffee or caffeine or even tea. Something is off here. And because most are worn out, because they have lost that focus, they have lost knowing that I am enough on my own as me. I don't have to be in competition with anyone else. I don't have to be a type A personality. I don't have to force things. I have to allow things to be. I have to learn to let. And remember, the adrenal glands also tie in particularly with the pineal gland. In fact, you may not know this, that the adrenal glands secrete a hormone called noradrenaline. You cannot make melatonin. You cannot make it unless it is activated by noradrenaline. So there's taking it right down to the earth of your body. And when do people struggle with sleep? Usually women with menopause, men with andropause, because becomes such responsibility as the ovaries and testes decline. As I said, that responsibility goes on the adrenals, and it just can't do it. So, to briefly mention here, what can we do to support? What frequencies from the earth can we bring in? Well, the vitamin, as I say, vitamin, mineral, protein, and an herb I'll mention. And by the way, the life blessing for the adrenals is drinking water. I don't know if you've been on the news, there's a real crisis about the quality of water in this country. It's full of lead. And it's much worse than people think. And so even the quality of what we can take into our bodies to bless them, to help this area, we have to take great care to find the right thing for us. But the vitamin for the adrenals is vitamin C. In fact, there is so much vitamin C in the adrenals that many cultures ate the adrenals of animals to get their vitamin C. How do Eskimos? There's no orange trees in Alaska. There's no pineapple trees. Where do they get their vitamin C? They eat that organ. Human beings are the only mammal on Earth that does not make their own vitamin C. Now, vitamin C has been chemicalized. I don't have time to go into this, but you need real vitamin C. Mushrooms, potatoes, raw potatoes, by the way, have the most vitamin C of most any vegetable. I don't know if you knew that. And other grains, especially buckwheat, is very high in vitamin C. And so this true vitamin C, not ascorbic acid, that's a chemical, that's made by man. It's not going to do it. Is the anti-scurvy vitamin. As we age, as we get into that 30 years of our lives, and we begin to age, we get a lot of black and blues. Our organs begin to sag. We lose vascular tone. That's all vitamin C. Do you know that they say that arthritis now is a scurvy event taking place in the body? Hardening of the arteries is scurvy in the arteries. So you can see by what I'm saying is how much that when we consider the spirit of the single eye, how much our living relates to blessing us. And of course, the mineral is potassium. And anytime that a person is in hyper, potassium is the mineral that breaks. It puts the brakes. It lowers the vagus nerve impulses. It calms. A fast beating heart, where your heart feels like it's going out of your chest. All of that is all potassium. And of course, eating adrenals itself. And again, standard process has simplex F and simplex M. The herb for this is licorice. Licorice has been known for thousands of years for balancing adrenal function. By the way, did you know that licorice was found to stop the replication of viruses? That was written up in JAMA about 10 years ago, and it was never published, but it's a peer-reviewed study. So we are in that time, aren't we? So to understand the creative power related to the spirit of the single eye, and to enjoy our own beingness in learning to be in this world in confidence without aggression, to live in this world as a person that, as someone was just saying, Karen was saying, that everything is the way it's supposed to be, and I am enough. That's the journey to success, the journey of calming the waters, and the journey of not burning out, of actually enjoying life. And so I think I'll pause there.
Okay, we would like to take a few minutes here for your thoughts. Anybody want to share what you're perceiving? Thank you, all of you who have commented. I'm sure if we continued on, we could have some more, but I'd like to share a few moments of attunement and join with all of you, a company of creator beings, and to let our radiation move through our field, which is our megaphone for today, into the world. So I would invite you to take your receiving hand and put your field, which includes all of us and maybe others, into your left hand. And take your giving hand and use either the radiation of the gonads or the radiation of the adrenals to send a current into this field. Whichever one works for you. If you want to hold both, that's fine too. But I'm gonna myself work with one particularly. So I'll be quiet and let's do this for a minute. And send our love into the world. To close, I'd invite you to take a deep breath of blessing and thanksgiving and breathe it out through your hands into the field that we share. Wow, thank you. To close, I'd like to give Donna and then Joseph a moment to make a closing comment, and I'll finish. So Donna?
Okay, can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
it's,
Yep.
it's the green thing came around. I'm going to read Carrier of Purpose, which relates to the spirit of the single eye. I am responsible. Whatever my feelings or uncertainties, the thing that is needed will be done. I see from far, and it is mine to care for now and future, so all moves in sureness and in grace. The forward thrust of focused energy that fuels my thought accomplishes the large because it touches each detail. I love the beauteous weave of subtle balance and proportion, and know where matters lie when all the words are spoken. My deep devotion is to this, that purpose true be served in every act I undertake, and always that I give support to the important one to whom I am responsible. Selah.
Well, I'm very grateful to have had a chance to go deeper with you all today in my knowledge and life experience with these things and the practical ways in which we can bless and keep not only our personal bodies, but have a greater awareness of how to bless and keep the body of humanity and this planet. This was a lot of information, I know, for you all. And, but I am very grateful to have had this field to speak into. Because as Chris said in the very beginning, we are about, someone needs to be about creating a new heaven and a new earth. Because it's pretty obvious that the first heaven and the first earth are passing away. And so I love doing this work with you all and getting into the deeper waters with this. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Joseph. As we go forward, we'll discover more intense challenges and days ahead. Let us stay in the attunement radiation, trusting that others in the field are doing the same, and that our world is receiving the radiation, the true radiation of being. In our gathering in December, I think it's the 19th, we'll consider the next two glands. These 4 glands are all below the crossover point and provide us with a megaphone through which we extend our radiation and creativity. So let us share attunement, bless our field, and bless our world. Wonderful to be with you. Thank you all for connecting, and we'll see you next time.